I couldn't move, my body was limp and heavy like I'd sunk through the floor into quicksand. My mind was awake, but everything else was shutting down, my muscles betraying me with each passing second. My son Owen lay beside me motionless on the kitchen tile. I could barely make out his face through my blurred vision, but I knew he was still breathing, the subtle rise and fall of his chest the only comfort in this nightmare. And then I heard my husband, Connor, standing a few feet away, whisper something so cold it sent a deeper chill through my bones than anything I'd ever felt in my 12 years of emergency nursing. "It's done. They'll both be gone soon." Gone. I wasn't supposed to hear that. As the sound of his footsteps faded down the hallway, I fought every urge to sit up and scream, to lunge for the phone, to grab Owen and run. Instead, I leaned close to Owen's ear and whispered, "Don't move yet." I don't know how I stayed calm in that moment. I think it was the years I spent as an ER nurse, handling trauma cases where one wrong move meant death, or maybe it was just the primal instinct of a mother trying to save her child. But something told me, don't panic, stay still, and wait, because something was very, very wrong. Let me take you back just a few hours before that moment, the last time things felt somewhat normal, if you could call our life normal anymore. I'm Bridget. I'm 38 years old, a mom, and until recently, a wife. I gave up my emergency nursing career when Owen was born to raise him full-time, leaving behind the adrenaline-fueled trauma center where I'd spent 8 dedicated years. He's my entire world, curious, scientifically minded, and always watching everything I do with those perceptive blue eyes that seem to catalog every detail. We've been a team since day one, especially after the difficult birth that nearly took both of us. Connor, my husband of 12 years, used to be a funny, charming, and kind guy who made people feel special, even strangers, always ready with the perfect comment or thoughtful gesture. But somewhere along the way, that charm faded into silence, his warm eyes growing distant and cold. Then came the late nights, the password-protected phone, the secret calls behind closed doors, the strange absences with increasingly thin excuses. Still, I held on, for Owen, for the life we built in our Boston suburb, for the hope that maybe the investment advisor I fell in love with was still in there somewhere. So when Connor said he wanted to cook dinner for us, a rare thing, I felt my heart lift with a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, he was trying again. Trying to be present, to connect, to be the father and husband we desperately missed. He said he had a special recipe he wanted to try: steak, mashed potatoes, green beans. Simple but comforting, nothing fancy but made with care. Owen was excited, practically bouncing in his chair as he helped set the table. He loved when Connor made an effort, no matter how small, starved for his father's attention in a way that made my heart ache. We sat at the table, the good china glinting under the dining room light. The food smelled okay, a little off, but I didn't say anything, not wanting to break this fragile moment of family connection. Connor was watching us, smiling more than usual, almost too much, his eyes never leaving our plates. I took a few bites, my training immediately registering the unusual bitter undertone beneath the butter in the potatoes. Owen did too, his small fork moving from plate to mouth. That's when I felt the first wave, lightheadedness, the room spinning just slightly, my peripheral vision tunneling in a way that my medical training recognized instantly. My mouth went dry, my stomach turned, my fingertips tingling with alarming numbness. I looked at Owen. He was rubbing his eyes, blinking slowly, confusion clouding his face. He whispered, "Mom, my tummy hurts." That was the moment I knew something was horribly wrong, my nurse's brain cataloging symptoms that matched no natural food poisoning. I remember thinking, this is a central nervous system depressant. This is deliberate. Then everything went dark except my thoughts, except my instinct honed through years of emergency situations. I collapsed beside my son and did the only thing I could think to do. It was a pretend. I lay there completely still, listening, measuring my breathing to appear unconscious while fighting the powerful sedative. And that's when I heard Connor's voice, "It's done. They'll both be gone soon." Gone. Those words will echo in my mind for the rest of my life, cutting deeper than any knife ever could. What happened next, even I didn't see it coming. If you asked me a year ago, I would have told you my life was boring in the best way. We lived in a quiet neighborhood just outside Boston, one of those places where people wave when you drive by and the mailman knows your dog's name. Our house wasn't fancy, but it was warm, safe, or at least I thought it was. I spent most of my time at home with Owen. He's 11, sharp as a tack, and way too observant for his age. He always asks a million questions, wants to know why things happen, how things work, his mind constantly analyzing patterns like I used to analyze patient symptoms. I used to joke that he was my little scientist, with his collection of chemistry sets and detective novels stacked beside his bed. He'd follow me everywhere, mimic everything I did, how I stirred my coffee, how I folded the laundry, even the way I hummed to myself when I was thinking. Being his mom is the one thing I've never questioned. I may not have been using my nursing degree like Connor used his Wharton MBA, but I had Owen, and he made my life feel rich with purpose. Connor and I met when I was 25, at a hospital charity event where he was representing his investment firm. He was tall, quick-witted, charming, the kind of guy who made you feel like the center of the universe when he looked at you with those intense eyes. He was working as an investment advisor, already making good money, and he had this way of taking charge in a room, confident but not cocky, at least not back then. We got married within a year, and at first, he really was amazing, the kind of husband my friends envied. He surprised me with flowers, wrote notes on sticky pads, made playlists for long drives up the New England coast. When Owen was born after my difficult delivery, he cried harder than I did, holding my hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. I remember thinking, this is the man I'll grow old with. We're going to build a beautiful life. But time changes people. Somewhere in the last 2 years, something in Connor started to shift, like watching a familiar landscape slowly transform into something unrecognizable. At first, it was little things. He stopped joining us for family movie nights, he stopped listening to Owen's excited science discoveries, he stopped kissing me on the forehead before leaving for work. I told myself it was stress, his job was intense, long hours, demanding clients, the pressure to maintain our lifestyle. I figured he just needed space. But then came the locked phone, the whispered calls behind closed doors, the way he'd leave the house without saying where he was going or when he'd be back. I asked questions, my nurse's intuition sending warning signals I tried desperately to ignore. He got defensive, said I was being paranoid, controlling, that my years at home had made me suspicious and bored. So I stopped asking, swallowing my concerns like bitter medicine. I went quiet too, for Owen's sake. I kept things smooth on the surface, smiles at dinner, small talk, the illusion of normal, while underneath my heart was breaking for the family we used to be. And then just last week, something strange happened. Connor came home early, earlier than he had in months, and for the first time in a long time, he looked relaxed, his shoulders unburdened in a way I hadn't seen in years. He kissed Owen on the head, looked me in the eye with unexpected warmth, and said, "I'm cooking dinner tonight." I blinked, suspicion immediately flickering through me. "Since when do you cook?" He shrugged, a casual gesture that didn't match the intensity in his eyes. "Just wanted to do something nice." "You've been working so hard with Owen lately." It was such a small thing, but it felt huge, like a boulder shifting after years of stillness. Suspicious, even, my nurse's intuition humming like a warning bell. But at the same time, I wanted to believe him, wanted it with an ache that surprised me. I wanted to believe that maybe, after everything, he was trying to come back to us, to be the man I married. So I smiled, pushing down the unease crawling up my spine. I told him that sounded wonderful. That night I set the table with the good plates, the ones from our wedding registry that rarely saw daylight. Owen picked out music to play while we ate, his face lighting up with a hope that made my heart twist. Connor was in the kitchen humming to himself while stirring the mashed potatoes, moving with a precision that seemed oddly rehearsed. It almost felt normal again. But in the pit of my stomach, something was off, a quiet whisper of instinct I didn't know I'd need to listen to until it was nearly too late. I remember watching Connor that night, standing over the stove, stirring the mashed potatoes like it was something he did every day. But he didn't. Connor had never cooked a full meal, not in the 12 years we were married, not even when I was recovering from childbirth. Not once. So yes, I was surprised, my senses heightened and alert. But more than anything, I was trying to convince myself this was a good sign, a fresh start, a way back to the family we once were. I wanted it to be. Dinner was served around 6. Owen had set the table, putting out the mismatched cloth napkins he thought were fancy, folded into triangles with meticulous care. He was excited his dad was finally doing something just for us, something normal, his eyes following Connor's every move. The food looked fine, steak a little overcooked, green beans with too much garlic. But it was the mashed potatoes that stuck out to my trained eye. They looked off, too smooth, too shiny, with a consistency that triggered the analytical part of my brain. I don't know how else to describe it except that they looked wrong in a way my years of medical training couldn't ignore. I took a bite, my body instantly registering something amiss. The texture was strange, too creamy, almost like glue against my tongue. Taste wasn't bad, but there was a bitterness under the butter, something medicinal that my palate recognized from years dispensing medications. I pushed the fork aside and reached for my water, swallowing hard, fear beginning to bloom. Owen took a few bites too. I watched him with mounting anxiety, my maternal instincts screaming now. He made a face but kept eating, eager to please his father. Connor was watching us, saying very little, just sitting there smiling with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I remember saying, "These potatoes taste a little funny," carefully keeping my voice casual. "And Connor," he laughed, said something like, "Guess I'm not as good a cook as I thought." Then he stood up and started clearing his plate before he'd even finished eating, his movements too controlled, too deliberate. That's when I felt the sensation unmistakable to someone who'd administered countless medications. My dizziness started in waves, not the kind that comes from standing up too fast, but the kind that made the room tilt sideways, the kind I'd seen in patients given powerful sedatives. My fingers went numb, tingling with alarming intensity. My throat felt dry and thick, the classic anticholinergic effect of certain pharmaceuticals. I blinked, trying to steady myself, my mind racing through differential diagnoses even as my body betrayed me. Across the table, Owen had gone quiet, his scientific curiosity replaced by confusion. He was rubbing his stomach, eyes wide with growing fear. His little fork clattered to the plate, the sound deafening in the quiet room. He looked at me and whispered, "Mom, my tummy hurts," his voice small and uncertain. That moment is burned into my memory, the way he looked so confused, like he knew something was wrong but didn't know how to say it, trusting me to make it better. My medical training took over even as fear threatened to drown me. I reached for him, but my arm wouldn't move right, the coordination pathways in my brain already affected. My muscles weren't responding, confirming my diagnosis, a powerful central nervous system depressant. My vision started to blur around the edges, darkness creeping in like an unwelcome tide. I could barely keep my eyes open, fighting the sedative effect with every ounce of willpower. And Connor, he wasn't rushing over to help like any normal parent would. He wasn't panicked at our sudden illness. He was just standing there at the sink, scrubbing his hands slowly, methodically, like he was washing something away, his face a mask of calm satisfaction. I knew something was terribly wrong, the pieces falling into horrifying place. My heart started pounding even as my body was failing me, adrenaline fighting against whatever he'd given us. I realized I couldn't speak, couldn't call for help, but my mind was clear, and one word echoed louder than everything else: protect Owen. I looked at my son, maternal love giving me strength beyond the chemical effects. Owen was slumping in his chair, his small body surrendering to the poison. So I did the only thing I could think to do, drawing on every emergency protocol I'd ever learned. I grabbed him gently and guided him to the floor beside me as I collapsed, pretending to pass out, managing our fall with what little muscle control I had left. I pressed his small hand under mine and gave the tiniest squeeze I could manage, just enough for him to feel it, our secret code that everything would be okay. Then we lay there, as still, silent, my ears straining for information as my other senses failed. That's when Connor walked back into the room, and I heard it: "It's done. They'll both be gone soon." My blood ran cold, every maternal instinct screaming in silent protest. There was no panic in his voice, no sadness, just calm finality, like this was a task he'd completed, like we were never more than boxes on a to-do list, obstacles to be removed. I fought every instinct to sit up, to scream, to run, but I stayed still, years of emergency room discipline holding me in place. And when I heard him walk out of the room, his footsteps unnervingly calm, I leaned close to my son and whispered, "Don't move yet." I didn't know how long we lay there. It could have been 30 seconds or 3 minutes. Time becomes strange when you're terrified and paralyzed, your body fighting against a drug trying to shut it down. All I could hear was my own pulse hammering in my ears and Owen's shallow breathing beside me. Then came the sound of Connor's footsteps retreating down the hallway, unhurried, deliberate, the casual pace of a man with no concerns. He paused near the door, I think, the silence stretching like a thread about to snap. Then I heard it click. The front door closed. He was gone. I opened my eyes just a crack, fear coursing through me like ice water. The kitchen was empty, dinner plates abandoned like evidence at a crime scene. I gently pressed my hand against Owen's back, feeling his warmth through his Spider-Man t-shirt. He tensed but didn't move, his body trembling slightly under my touch. He was awake, his brilliant mind processing everything. He'd heard everything too. Bathroom, I whispered, my medical training kicking in despite the fog. Go spit. Throw up if you can. He blinked at me, scared but understanding, trust shining through the fear in his eyes. Owen might only be 11, but he's so smart, his mind making connections mine couldn't at his age. He crawled toward the hallway with shaky limbs, determination in every painful movement. I followed, dragging my legs behind me like they were sandbags, fighting against whatever sedative Connor had used. We made it to the guest bathroom, the closest one off the kitchen. I turned on the tap, kept the water running loud just in case Connor came back, the sound masking our movements. Then I leaned over the sink and forced myself to vomit everything, years of emergency room experience telling me exactly what to do. I dug my fingers down my throat, desperate to purge whatever he had given us, my mind already calculating absorption rates and treatment protocols. Owen did the same, tears streaming down his cheeks, coughing, gagging, but he got it out, his small body heaving with the effort. It was working, the physical relief immediate. Slowly, my head was still foggy, but I could think and move, my medical training helping me assess our condition. My breathing was tight but no longer fading, oxygen levels improving with each expelled bit of poison. I sat on the cold tile floor, my back against the cabinet, holding Owen's hand, my thumb gently stroking his palm to calm him. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking with confusion, "why would Dad do that?" I couldn't answer, the question stabbing my heart. We had to get out now. I tried to call 911, but my phone was dead, not low battery dead, no response, no restart screen. It had been working that morning when I texted the school nurse. I checked the wall phone in the kitchen, moving as quietly as my unsteady legs would allow. Line dead. That's when I realized Connor had planned this thoroughly, coldly, leaving nothing to chance. "No time," I said, trauma nurse instincts taking over. "We go now." I grabbed the emergency flashlight from under the sink, wrapped Owen in my hoodie, and led him through the laundry room into the garage, avoiding windows. I had to be quiet, hyper-aware of every creaking floorboard. We both did. I didn't know if Connor had really left or if he was watching from the car or hiding outside, waiting to make sure we wouldn't wake. I opened the garage door manually, years of power outage drills paying off. It groaned, loud enough to make my heart stop, the sound seeming to echo through the neighborhood. I peeked out, no car in the driveway, no one on the street, just the empty hush of evening. "Go to Vivian Marsh. Now," I whispered, naming our retired teacher neighbor. Owen ran barefoot across the lawn toward our neighbor's house, his legs gathering strength with each desperate step. Vivian had lived there for 22 years. She was 72, tough as nails from years teaching high school psychology, and always home in the evenings. I hobbled after him, my legs still jelly, my vision swimming, fighting the remnants of the sedative with every step. By the time I reached the door, Owen was pounding on it, his small fists desperate and urgent. She opened it fast, surprised, but one look at us and she knew something was wrong, her teacher's instincts kicking in. "What happened?" she gasped, eyes sharp with concern. "No time. Call 911, I managed to say, my throat still raw from vomiting. "He poisoned us. My husband, he tried to kill us." The look on her face changed from shock to action, years of handling classroom emergencies evident in her swift response. She pulled us inside, locked the door, and grabbed her phone, already dialing as she guided us to her sofa. Within 5 minutes, I could hear the sirens, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself breathe, holding Owen against my chest. We were still alive, our hearts beating against each other. But this was far from over, the nightmare only beginning to unfold. The ambulance lights flashed against the walls like red lightning as the paramedics rushed us out of Vivian's house. Owen was trembling under the emergency blanket they'd wrapped him in, holding on to my hand like he thought I might disappear, his fingers cold against mine. My body was still fighting to stabilize, my vision was sharp 1 second, swimming the next, but I was conscious, alive, monitoring both our symptoms even as I was being treated. And so was Owen. That was all that mattered in that moment, his breathing settling into a more normal rhythm. At the hospital, they ran tests immediately: blood work, toxicology screens, vitals. Nurses moved fast, with purposeful urgency I recognized intimately. I knew that speed, that focused efficiency. I used to move like that when I was the one wearing scrubs in the trauma center, when split seconds made the difference. The doctor came in with the results within the hour, his face grim but professional. It was a sedative, he said, confirming what I'd already suspected. Crushed and mixed into the food. Probably benzodiazepine. Very high dosage. You were lucky you vomited it out when you did. It was lucky. That's what they all kept saying, the word echoing off the sterile hospital walls. But this wasn't luck. It was deliberate, and not just what he did, but what I did. The whisper to Owen, the bathroom, and the escape were instincts honed through years of emergency medicine. That was survival, pure and unrelenting. When the officer arrived to take my statement, I told him everything, word for word, step by step, my training in giving precise medical reports serving me well. Then I asked, dread forming a knot in my stomach, did they find him? The officer's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. He's not at the house. His car's gone. We've issued a statewide alert. I felt my stomach drop again, not from poison, but from the sickening possibility that he could get away with this. He might leave us always looking over our shoulders, never truly safe again. But then, less than 48 hours later, they caught him at the airport, trying to board a flight to Belize with a fake passport and a second phone hidden in the lining of his expensive carry-on. He hadn't just poisoned us and run. He had planned this for weeks, maybe longer, meticulously crafting our deaths like one of his financial portfolios. And it wasn't until my sister Morgan flew in that the final puzzle piece slid into place, completing the horrifying picture. We were sitting in the hospital room, Owen finally asleep in the bed next to me, his face peaceful for the first time since that night. Morgan leaned forward with this look on her face, part disbelief, part heartbreak, her attorney's composure cracking. I didn't want to say anything, she whispered, her voice tight with regret. But Bridget, Connor's been cheating. I've known for 2 months. I just stared at her, the revelation less shocking than it should have been. She said, I saw him with a young woman, maybe 26. They were at that restaurant in downtown. He kissed her. I followed them. They went back to a condo in Back Bay. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure what to do. I thought maybe he was just having a crisis. A crisis. I almost laughed, the bitterness rising in my throat like bile. Remember, this was never just an affair. This was an exit strategy, cold and calculated. And it got worse. That woman, Elena Winters, it turns out, she came from a wealthy family, her father a real estate magnate with properties across New England. Her father had passed away recently. She was set to inherit a sizable fortune, but only if she married someone with no children and no prior debts, stipulations in her father's will to protect the family wealth. Connor, then, was trying to create that version of himself, free of a wife, free of a son, free of his mounting debts, free to start over with a fresh inheritance. The poisoning, the fake documents, and the airport escape made sense now, the puzzle pieces fitting together with sickening clarity. He wasn't just trying to leave us. He was trying to erase us, to write us out of existence. They charged Connor with attempted murder, felony child endangerment, and use of a controlled substance with intent to cause harm, the charges piling up like the evidence against him. He pled not guilty at first, until the evidence was stacked too high to climb out of, his lawyer's face growing more grim with each new revelation. He's now serving life in prison with no chance of parole, his investment career and freedom terminated in a single judicial sentence. And me? I'm still putting the pieces back together, finding fragments of myself I thought were lost forever. But the truth? I'd rather live in broken pieces than in a perfect lie, the jagged edges of reality better than the smooth surface of deception. I wake up every morning with a different kind of gratitude now, not for the big things like second chances or justice or revenge, but for the small ones that remind me we're alive. It was like Owen laughter coming from the living room of Morgan's apartment. Or the quiet click of the front door locking at night, the security it represents. The warmth of sunlight through the kitchen window as I make coffee in a house where I know we are safe, truly safe. It's been 3 months since the night everything fell apart. 3 months since I collapsed on the kitchen floor next to my son. 3 months since I heard my husband Connor whisper that we'd be gone soon. It's surreal to say those words out loud, even now, the reality of them still shocking. It doesn't feel real, like something from a nightmare or a true crime show. But it was. And we're still here, breathing, healing, and surviving. Owen and I both made full physical recoveries, our bodies resilient. Doctors said the sedative dosage was dangerously high, meant to mimic an accidental overdose, something that could be explained away as a tragic mistake, dismissed by investigators. If we hadn't thrown it up in time, we might not be here to tell this story, our voices silenced forever. That thought follows me like a shadow, darkening even the brightest moments. Owen doesn't talk about his dad much, the wound's still too fresh. Sometimes I catch him staring out the window, quiet, lost in his thoughts, his scientist's mind trying to make sense of the senseless. Other times he'll crawl into my bed in the middle of the night just to be near me, seeking the security only a mother can provide. I don't push him to talk. I let him lead, respecting his process. He's healing in his own way, finding his path through the darkness. So am I, one day at a time. We're living with my sister Morgan for now, her legal expertise a shield around us. She's been our anchor, and despite the guilt she felt for not telling me about Connor's affairs sooner, I never once blamed her, not for a second. Because here's the truth, we all miss things we don't want to see, our hearts protecting us from what our minds can't bear. I didn't want to believe Connor was capable of hurting us, that the man I married, the father of my child, was planning our erasure like it was a business merger, a simple deletion of liabilities. But he was. The motive was as cold as the act: money, image, social status, a future that didn't include us, an investment in a new life. He pled guilty in the end. There was too much evidence to fight: the poisoning, the fake ID, the plane ticket, the bank transfers, the text messages to Elena promising a new life together. He's now serving life without parole, his expensive suits exchanged for prison uniforms. And while I can't say I've found peace yet, I found something more important: clarity, a vision unclouded by deception. People always ask me what I learned from this, what I'd say to other women, or anyone in a situation like mine. So here it is: listen to your instincts, even when they whisper, even when they don't come with proof or evidence. We're taught to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to silence our inner warnings. But sometimes doubt is the benefit, the protection we need most. When your body tells you something is wrong, believe it without hesitation. When your gut clenches without explanation, pay attention to that primordial warning. When you feel the air shift in a room, the mood darken, the silence stretch, that's your warning system activating. I ignored it for too long, drowning it in rationalization. I let fear of confrontation be louder than fear of danger, a mistake I'll never make again. Never again. The night Connor tried to poison us, my survival didn't come from strength. It didn't come from training alone, though my nursing experience helped. It came from stillness, from listening, from not moving until the time was right. That small, quiet decision saved my life. And it saved my son, the most precious person in my world. Now every day is a new chance to protect him the way I couldn't before, not just from harm, but from silence, from doubt, from believing that love means ignoring your own voice. Because real love, the kind that lasts, never puts you in danger. It never makes you question your worth or safety. And it never, ever comes with poison, whether in a glass or in words or in actions.